Alright, so Apple just announced two new iPads, the M4 iPad Pro and the M2 iPad Air, both of which are fairly substantial upgrades from their predecessors. So then, which is best for you? Well, let's talk about it. First, let's discuss the raw stats. Both iPads are very powerful compared to what came before them. They can do all you really want from them, especially the more expensive one, the iPad Pro. The iPad Pro is for, as in the name, professionals. It's built with them in mind, so the device has the most top-of-the-line specs that Apple has to offer and also has a high price to reflect that. I won't go into all the small different features that the iPad Pro has over the iPad Air, but the most notable ones include the new OLED screens, the fastest processor ever put into an iPad, that being the M4 chip, and ProMotion, plus a few others. So this new iPad Pro is made to look really nice, perform super well, and be really fast. It's everything someone would want in a tablet, even more than that in fact. And that's the crux of the iPad Pro. Really, how much do you need? What if you don't need all of that? And as a response to that question, Apple produces the iPad Air, which originally seemed to be more intended to be the thinnest and lightest iPad in Apple's lineup. But now it seems to be considered more of the mid-tier or all-in-one iPad device that most people tend to gravitate to. It sports a more consumer-friendly price tag with a smaller camera system, still powerful but not as powerful processor, and also just the standard 60 frames per second screen, which means by costing less, it sacrifices a little bit, such as the camera system, which most people prefer to use the cameras on their phones anyway, the processor, but this one is also great, more than enough for most people since it was in the iPad Pro last year, and one of the biggest downgrades for some, the decreased refresh rate of the display, in addition to these ones on your screen right now. All in all though, for most people, those are pretty negligible sacrifices. Even with the screen being 60 Hz for instance, that probably isn't a deal breaker to the average consumer. Faster refresh rates like 120 Hz look nice, but are probably not noticeable enough for most consumers to justify the extra costs. Moreover, the OLED screens for the iPad Pros, although definitely appealing for professionals, are also probably just a bit prettier screens for consumers, who probably, again, don't find them that appealing, at least a few $100s more appealing. So the largest difference between the iPad Air and Pro that most consumers will consider is the processors. And I'll tell you right now, for most of you, the answer is pretty clear. In general, there are currently not that many programs on the iPad that take full advantage of either chip. That's right. Not the M2 chip in the iPad Air, and most certainly not the M4 chip in the iPad Pro. The previous generation iPad Pro with that same M2 chip that the iPad Air has now was rarely able to be used at its full potential. And frankly, that's more due to the software rather than the hardware. iPad OS is not Mac OS, and is not Windows. It's an operating system that does receive many updates, but not as substantial as it needs. Compared to macOS, iPadOS lacks that customizability, program functionality, and compatibility, among other things. iPadOS is pretty much like iOS, which is what the iPhones run, meaning what it does really well. But the issue is, it can't really do that much, especially when compared to a PC. So with all of this new processing power that comes with the M4 chip in particular, most users can't really take full advantage of it yet. Now, presumably, during the coming months, Apple will likely announce more, such as AI functionality. That will make the iPad Pro far more appealing, thereby allowing for the iPad Pro to be especially helpful for professionals. However, at this moment, this is what we have, and I'm just merely speculating on Apple's future innovations. So then what else does the iPad Pro have that makes it more appealing than the iPad Air? Well, there are some arguments for the iPad Pro being a little more future-proof as compared to Apple's other offerings. But I beg to differ. I have the iPad Air from 2019, and it's still kicking. And runs pretty smooth. It uses the old iPhone processors that iPads used to rock, so it's not nearly as future-proof as the current ones, but it's still usable, with only some crashes here and there with Notability and other school apps on occasion. Now, it has been crashing more as time passes, so it is aging, and eventually, Apple will stop supporting it with system updates, meaning that all of the apps that I use with this iPad will one day not be compatible with it anymore. So even if its performance stands the test of time, its compatibility will not. Now, going back to the iPad Pro being more future-proof, I don't know about that. I think eventually, for most of you out there, you will either need to or want to buy a new iPad. A new one might come out that's really shiny, really cool, or yours might just become obsolete. So buying a product that you don't need and might never be able to take full advantage of probably won't benefit you in the long run. So overall, I would wager, for most of you, the iPad Air is the better option. This includes students, most professionals and workers, and just general users. Even then, maybe the normal iPads might be more cost-effective and suitable for you. But for the iPad Pro, I would say only the top of the top professionals would be able to take full advantage of its power. However, I do understand the desire to get the top of the line product. It's reasonable to want to get the best that is out there. I often want that. I'm not going to stop you. Just make sure to focus on your needs. But either way, you can't really go wrong. The M4 iPad Pro or the M2 iPad Air, they're both fantastic. My name is Seerus. It's spelled like Cyrus, but not like Sea Rooster. Just take out the terror. Thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful day. Peace.